Hi everyone, welcome to the last project of our Python for Actuaries series. And this last project is basically an extension of the seventh project that we did on cash flow modeling. Using that code, we will create the sensitivity testing and also learn about the doc strings. Okay, so without wasting a minute, let's begin. So I have this same data, that is year, interest rates, and cash flow. Make sense? So let's create, first of all, let's copy the same code that we created in our last project, that is project 2, and copy this again over there. Okay, that was the VS code that we created, right? Let's rename it as project 8. Okay, so now let's go to desktop. This folder is sensitivity testing. Sensitivity testing. Let's create a new blank Jupyter notebook over here. Okay. So, if we take a look at this VS Code file, let's open it. So that was the code that we created with the class named as cash flow model. We have our constructor, add entry is one method, load data from Excel another method, to calculate present value another method. So technically in this session, we will add one more method which helps us in calculating the sensitivity testing results. Okay, we will create that function, that method, sorry. But in the last project, I mentioned about that you can make it static as well as make it dynamic as well. But preference is to make it dynamic. So what I was saying, if you see carefully, I was saying that load data from Excel, that is the method that I am creating, and I am importing a file. Okay. You can see over here using the pandas, I am reading the Excel file, that data file. Let's open this first for a second. Okay, this file. Uh, yeah. So then I was saying that for index comma row in iter rows, that my year will be row of year. So basically it is picking. So the name over here has to be the exact same that is written over here. But it might be the case that the next time, let's say over here it is written interest rates, next time when you receive this file from some another team or whatever, this I is small, whereas in your code your I is capital. As we all know, Python is case sensitive, so your code will crash. Make sense? Or next time it is written as int rate, int rate, then again your code will crash. Basically the name has to be exactly same. So it means that there is a flaw within my code. I There is a scalability issues, right? Makes sense. So what I can do, that instead of typing this year, interest rate and cash flow, I can use the df.columns concept. So what am I saying? Let me show you quickly. First of all, let's open our blank Jupyter notebook. Okay, so let's import pandas as pd. So first of all, I will teaching you that concept. Then we will create our new method by the name sensitivity testing. Okay, so I have imported pandas as pd. So df is equal to pd dot read excel. Let's put the file path. Data. Copy and paste it over there. If you check now the df, that's how it looks like. I can type df dot columns and I can see the list. If I type like same concept of indexing that we have covered earlier, 0, so we can see it is year. Df dot columns 1, it is interest rate, and the second one will be cash flow. So instead of typing year that I was doing so far, year, interest rate or cash flow, I can replace these values with these things. So let's do that. Df dot columns, let's put it over there, that instead of year I can put this. Okay, instead of interest rate I will put this, because I want my code to be dynamic rather than static. What do you mean by dynamic? Simply when someone will make any changes in their data file, so the code is efficient enough to make the changes accordingly and throw the accurate results. Okay, so next is the cash flow. So it will be 2. Make sense? uh, 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 Put 2 over there. Makes sense. Now it is looking pretty neat and clean. Let's trigger this. So nothing will happen because we are just creating a class, but to ensure that everything is uh, correct, we can ensure from here that there is no issue. Okay, let's save it. So now let's first of all check whether our code is working fine or not. So from, what was the file name? That is project 8. From project 8 import, what was the class name? I think that was cash flow model. Copy. Okay, class has been imported. Now let's create an object. Let's call it bell cash flow model and trigger this. So bell dot. Now you can see these are the different methods that we have created, and this is our attribute. So if you just trigger bell dot data, you can see it is blank currently. Okay, this is an attribute. If you remember our OOP basics session that I covered earlier, that this is the attribute, whereas these all are methods that you have created. So whenever you want to call any method, you have to put these brackets over there. But in case of when you are calling any attribute, so over here we have this attribute by the name data, we don't have to type these brackets over there. Okay, nothing will work. You can see. Okay, you can see over here. So bell dot data, it is blank currently because that is what we did. Because when you create an object, this will automatically trigger. Okay, so I want to see the result. Bell dot, first of all, load data from Excel. Okay, so wait a second. Yeah, when you put the brackets, press shift tab. So you can see over there that it is saying that you have to give the file name. And have you seen one more thing over there, that docstring, that there is no docstring. So we will cover up this part after learning about the sensitivity testing, and we will cover this docstring within this session only. Okay, so let's focus over here. I have to give the file path. So file path is again this data file. Copy this, put this over there, put the row string. Make sense? Done. So let's calculate the present value. You can see 6856. So it means our code is working fine when we made some little bit changes over here. Okay, that is fine. Now let's move on and add the concept of sensitivity testing. First of all, for those who don't know about the sensitivity testing, what am I trying to say is, so let me show you quickly. So over here, the actuarial knowledge will be useful. I calculated my present value. Okay. Now I am saying that what will be the impact on my present liability, basically the liability, if my interest rates will be increased by 10%. Basically over here it is 3%. When you increase it by 10%, it means 3.3%, right? This into 1.1, 3.3%. That is what I'm trying to say. That what will be the impact on my liability if the interest rates has been shoot up by the 10% over the entire time period. Okay, if you use basic actuarial knowledge, that then we all know that if you increase the interest rate in this particular cash flow model, if you increase the interest rates, my liabilities will fall. Make sense? But in case of cash flows, if you increase the interest rates, my liabilities will increase. Right, this is the basic knowledge that we have. Can we do these kind of things within our model itself? How can we do the sensitivity testing? So let's try to do that. Don't save, go back to code. Let's create one more method over here. Let's call it sensitivity test. The first parameter will always be self. So I have to give the interest rate factor, let's say, and the cash flow factor. Because in our data, we have only two parameters, numerical parameters on which I want to apply my sensitivity testing. So interest rate factor, comma, cash flow factor, colon. So what do I want? So I will type For entry in so in our present value we use the data dot items. Data dot items, data is a dictionary, and I am using dot items. It means that it will gives me both the keys and the values, but let's say I am only interested in the values. Okay, so for entry in self dot data dot values colon entry, and yes, so you see when your answer will be like that. So I will type that entry of interest rate, then I will give that interest rate factor. So what am I saying? That so let me show you quickly over here itself. First of all, how does my data looks like? Dun, 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 dun. Before, let's say I move forward, let me revise you something what we have covered. I am just typing pass, so that let me trigger this. Okay, it is completed. Save it, and let's close this, shut down, and let's reopen it first of all, so that you don't get confused about the dictionary items that we have covered in our last session as well. So let me try to revise that thing first of all. Okay, so we were here. Let's first of all remove all the functions that has already been triggered. Go to kernel, restart and clear output. It helps us in undo all the triggered cells over here. So you click on kernel, you click on restart and clear output. Restart and clear all outputs. So it will take just 5-10 seconds maybe. And okay, done. So we first of all import our class. Okay, done. We created this. Right now the bell is blank. I loaded my data and then I calculated my present value. Make sense? Now, if I check the value of my data, you see over here, what is this? That you have a key and then these are their corresponding values. Okay. So over here, I am using the dot items function of the dictionary, which helps us in giving me keys as well as values. But now I am using self dot data dot values, which means I will be getting these as my answer, which is in itself a dictionary. So I am saying that from this I am applying my sensitivity factor on this value. So that is what I am typing over here. I am typing entry. You can type anything. Let's say if you type I over here, then you will type I over here. So it is all up to you. Just for your understanding perspective, I am using that we used entry over there, so you can use entry over here. I mean, there is no hard and fast rule because you are using a for loop, right? Anything that you want. Okay, so I'm typing now entry of this interest rate. Okay, I want this value to be multiplied by interest rate factor. So we have covered this concept that present value is equal to present value plus this. But there is one more method. If you remember our mathematics class where I covered about this concept, let's say a is equal to 2. So you can either do a is equal to a plus 2. That is what we have learned so far, a4. Whereas you can also do a plus equal to 2. Okay, if you check again, it will be 6. So using this concept now, I will do this. So interest rate is equal to interest rate multiply equal to interest rate factor. That is what I am trying to do. Okay. So what is going on? That interest rate is equal to interest rate multiplied by the interest rate factor, because I am applying the sensitivity testing. Same thing I will do for my cash flow. Entry of this cash flow. Okay. Multiply equal to this cash flow factor. Cash flow factor. Done. And save this, trigger this, and done. Okay. Let's close this. Let's close this. Shut down properly. Now your project is super duper ready. Let's reopen our file. Okay. So first of all, what I will do is, let's say I will import pandas SPD. Done. I don't need these things. That is just for your understanding. So from project 8, I will import cash flow model. Oh, wait a second. First of all, let's clear all the output. Otherwise, you guys will get confused. Okay. Import pandas SPD. Then the project was project 8 and we were importing the cash flow model. Done. We triggered it. Currently the data is blank. Now I have to give the load data from Excel. Done. Calculate the present value. So let's first of all remove these things as well. Calculate present value. This is my value 6856. Make sense? Now I will apply my sensitivity testing. Bell dot. Now you see sensitivity test method. Shift tab. It is saying that give the interest rate factor as well as the cash flow factor. Let's say I am increasing my interest rates by 10%. So 1.1, right? 10% increased, comma 1, because I don't want to apply any kind of sensitivity factor on my cash flows. Trigger this. What will happen? My interest rates has been increased by 10%. So technically my liabilities should fall, right? Let's trigger this. Done. Now let's calculate my present value again. And you can see the present value has been decreased. All right, you can see that. Similarly, I will apply, let's say now, sensitivity testing instead of interest rate, but on the cash flows. That I am now increasing my cash flows by 10%, which means like if the cash flow value is 1000, I am saying that okay, it will not be 1000 but 1100. So if my cash flows has been increased, my liabilities should increase. Make sense? So the liability right now is 6625. If I apply the sensitivity test on this one, let's trigger this and check the present value again. And you can see my present value of liability has been increased. Okay. You can simply apply the sensitivity testing on both of the factors. In actuarial terms, when you apply sensitivity test on more than one parameter, we call it scenario testing, right? So let's say if I apply 5% increase in my interest rates, which means like if there is 3%, it will be 3.15 or something, whatever. So sensitivity test, trigger this. Now if I check my calculate present value, it has been increased. But there is one major point to understand. One major point. You calculate your present value over here. Okay. Then you are overriding your interest rate values over here. Okay. You are overriding your interest rate values. That after triggering this, your base interest rate values has already been increased from 3% to 3.3. Okay. So which means if you are applying sensitivity test by increasing 5%, so this 5% will be increased on the 3.3%, not on the 3%. Let me tell you what am I trying to say. So initially our value was 3%. Initially I applied sensitivity test on my interest rate by increasing it by 10%, that is into 1.1, 3.3%, and you apply your sensitivity testing. Where is it? Yes, over there. And then you calculate the present value. But you are applying sensitivity testing again by increasing it by 5%. So this 5% will be on this value, that is 1.05 into 1.05. That is what I am trying to say. I mean, it's all depend upon the model requirement. How do you want to apply the sensitivity testing? And let's say if you don't want that when you trigger a sensitivity testing function and then you again calculate present value function, you type this thing again, you can simply within your code over here, right, outside the loop, you can just put same concept like we did over here, that self dot add entry, we are calling the this method. Make sense? Similarly, you can just copy this and put it over there. Instead of typing self dot add entry, you can do this self dot calculate present value. Okay, and it doesn't require any parameters for you. That's it. You can see, you can simply trigger this value. You can now, if you try to trigger this again, so what will happen, you don't have to type this thing again and again. So which means when you type just this value, it will automatically gives you the result. You don't have to type one more line of to calculate present value, because you are calling this method within the sensitivity test method itself. So I hope it is clear to all of you what we are trying to achieve in this actuarial project based on how to calculate the liability value using the cash flow model, and what will be the impact on your liability values by applying the sensitivity test on the interest rate or cash flows or on both of them. Okay, so I hope that you all enjoyed this lecture, and I will see you now in the last lecture, and we will cover about the concept of doc strings. So with this, thank you so much, and I will see you in the next video.